The wedding of the year, that's what everyone called it. The grand ballroom of the Palms Hotel in Maitama, Abuja, was decorated with cascading white roses, glimmering chandeliers, and gold-accented tables. The scent of fresh flowers mixed with the aroma of gourmet dishes, and laughter filled the air as over 300 guests, dressed in their finest, anticipated the moment when the bride would walk down the aisle. The groom, Richard Daniels, stood tall at the altar, adjusting the cuffs of his pristine white tuxedo. He was the golden boy of Abuja's elite, young, wealthy, and the CEO of a booming tech company. But as the minutes ticked by, the murmurs in the hall grew louder. The bride, Sophia Williams, was late. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Whispers turned to concerned glances. The wedding planner, a petite woman with sharp eyes, rushed in and out, pressing her phone to her ear, trying to get answers. Then Richard's mother, Madame Grace Daniels, a woman whose presence alone commanded respect, marched up to him. Her voice was sharp, yet controlled. "Where is she?" Richard's heart pounded. He pulled out his phone and called Sophia. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. Cold fear crept up his spine. "David, check her room," he ordered. David nodded and hurried toward the hotel suite where Sophia had been getting ready. 5 minutes later he returned, face pale. "She's gone." The hall erupted in chaos. Guests gasped, whispers turned to full-blown conversations, and Sophia's family huddled together, confusion and worry on their faces. Richard's father, Chief Christopher Daniels, a man of few words and immense power, stepped forward. "We need to find her, now." The search began. Calls were made. Security footage was checked. No sign of Sophia. By midnight, the wedding had officially turned into a nightmare. Sophia Williams had vanished. 2 days later, Abuja was still buzzing with the news. "Bride goes missing on wedding day." The headlines were everywhere. Social media was flooded with theories. She ran away, she was kidnapped, or something even worse. Richard had barely slept. His mansion felt like a prison, filled with relatives and investigators. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, when his mother's voice cut through the silence. "The police just called," she said, her tone unusually stiff. Richard looked up. "Did they find her?" Madame Grace hesitated. "They found something." The air grew heavy. "Where?" Richard asked, barely above a whisper. Madame Grace exchanged glances with Chief Christopher before answering. "In your father's house." Richard froze. "My father's house." He turned to Chief Christopher, confusion morphing into dread. "Dad, what is she talking about?" But the chief just stood there, silent. A chill ran through Richard's spine as he grabbed his car keys. "Take me there! Now!" The drive to Chief Christopher's private residence in Asokoro felt endless. As they arrived, police cars surrounded the mansion, red and blue lights flashing ominously. Richard pushed past the officers and into the house. Then he saw her. Sophia, lying in the center of the grand living room, still in her wedding dress. Her once radiant skin had lost its warmth, her veil draped over her lifeless body like a cruel reminder of the day she was supposed to have had. Richard staggered back, his knees buckling. "No, no, no, no!" The world around him blurred as a detective stepped forward. "We have questions for your father." All eyes turned to Chief Christopher. The powerful man who had built an empire from nothing, who was feared and respected in equal measure, stood unmoving. Then, for the first time in Richard's life, he saw something unsettling in his father's eyes. Guilt. Richard's mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Just hours ago, he was supposed to be a married man, starting a new life with the woman he loved. Instead, his bride had vanished without a trace, and now her lifeless body had been found in his father's house. His father, Chief Christopher Daniels. The most powerful man he knew, the man who had built a business empire with his bare hands, who commanded respect with just his presence. And now that man was being accused of something unimaginable. Richard's throat was dry as he turned to look at him. His father stood still, his face unreadable, but there was something different about him, something Richard couldn't quite place. "Richard, let's go," Madame Grace said, gripping his arm tightly. Her fingers dug into his skin, but he barely felt it. His body was numb. "Mom, we can't just leave. Sophia is—" His voice cracked. "We have no choice," she said, lowering her voice. "The police are taking your father in. The media will be here soon. You don't want them filming you like this." Richard clenched his fists. "Like what?" "Like a weak man," she hissed. "Now get in the car." He didn't move. He turned to his father instead. "Dad, what's going on?" Chief Christopher finally looked at him, his gaze steady. "Go home, Richard." "But—" "Go home." There was something final in his tone, something Richard had heard many times before. It was an order, and he had no choice but to obey. The drive back to the Daniels mansion in Maitama was tense, while David drove in silence. Richard stared out the window, his mind replaying everything. Sophia's disappearance, the wedding turning into chaos, the way his father had stood there, unshaken, even. As the police led him away, nothing made sense. David finally spoke, breaking the silence. "Bro, I'm sorry." Richard didn't respond. David continued, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. "I don't even know what to say. Sophia, man, just drive." Richard's voice was hollow. David sighed and focused on the road. "Madam." Grace, however, was not the type to stay quiet for long. "Richard, you need to stop sulking and think." Richard turned to her, his eyes flashing. "Stop sulking. My bride is dead, Mom. Dead. Found in my father's house, and you're telling me to stop sulking?" Madame Grace met his anger with an icy stare. "Yes, because crying won't bring her back, and it certainly won't save your father." Richard inhaled sharply. "You think he's innocent? Of course he is. Then explain why her body was in his house." Madame Grace's expression darkened. "I don't know, but I do know your father. He's many things, but he's not a fool. If he wanted to kill someone, would he really dump the body in his own house?" The thought sent a shiver down Richard's spine. David spoke up again. "She has a point. If your dad was guilty, he wouldn't have been so calm. The guy is a billionaire, Richard. If he wanted someone gone, trust me, there wouldn't even be a body to find." Richard hated to admit it, but they were right. His father was too calculated to make such a reckless mistake. So, if he didn't do it, who did? Back at the mansion, Richard locked himself in his study. The room was dimly lit, shelves stacked with books he had never read, awards from his business ventures, and a framed picture of himself and Sophia from their engagement party. He picked up the photo, running, his thumb over Sophia's smile. She had been everything to him, and now she was gone. His grip tightened. He needed answers, and he wouldn't get them by sitting here. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. David stepped in. "Man, I know you're grieving, but we have to start asking questions." Richard exhaled. "I know, but where do we start?" David sat across from him. "Let's go over what we know. 1. Sophia vanished from the hotel on the wedding day. 2. She was missing for 2 days. 3. We just found her in your father's house." Richard leaned forward, his mind racing. She had to have been taken somewhere first. No way she was just lying in that house for 2 days. David nodded. "Exactly. So who had access to your dad's house?" A name popped into Richard's mind. "Emeka," he muttered. David frowned. "The driver?" "Yes. Emeka has been working for my dad for years. He has full access to the house. David's expression darkened. That means he could have brought Sophia there. Richard grabbed his car keys. Then let's find him. 2 hours later, they stood outside Emika's apartment in Gwarimpa, knocking aggressively on the door. No answer. Richard banged harder. Emika, open this door. Still nothing. David exchanged a look with him, then tested the doorknob. It was unlocked. Richard hesitated for only a second before pushing it open. The inside was dark, eerily quiet. The air smelled stale, like someone hadn't been here for days. Then they saw it. On the dining table sat a half-eaten plate of jollof rice, the food now rotting. Next to it, a phone charger still plugged into the wall, a jacket draped over the couch, but no Emika. Richard felt his stomach twist. He left in a hurry. David nodded. Or someone made him leave. Richard's gaze landed on something on the floor, a brown envelope. He picked it up, heart pounding, and pulled out the papers inside. They weren't papers, they were photos. And when Richard saw what they were, his blood ran cold. It was a picture of Sophia, not at the wedding, not in a happy moment. Sophia, tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear, a man's shadow looming over her. Richard's breath caught in his throat. Oh my God! David stared in shock. This means she was held captive before she died. Richard's hands shook. He flipped through the photos. More of Sophia in the same position. The last one made him stop breathing. A man's hand was reaching toward her face, and on his wrist, a gold bracelet with the initials CD. Richard nearly collapsed. That was his father's bracelet. Richard's hands trembled as he stared at the photograph. It couldn't be. The Bracks. The bracelet in the picture, gold, thick, engraved with CD, belonged to one man, his father. David took a step back, rubbing his head. Bro, what the hell is this? Richard swallowed hard, his throat dry. I don't know. His voice barely came out. But that's your dad's bracelet. David pointed at the image, his face contorted in disbelief. Are we saying he actually did this? Richard's mind was spinning. It didn't add up. His father had never been reckless. If he were guilty, why would he leave such an obvious clue? Behind? Something wasn't right. He shoved the photos back into the envelope. We need to get out of here. David nodded. Yeah, before someone finds us here. They moved quickly, stepping out of the apartment and locking the door behind them. The night air was cool, but Richard's skin was burning. Whoever had taken those pictures wanted him to see them, and that meant they were watching. Chief Christopher sat with his back straight, his expression unreadable. He had been in this room for 5 hours, but he hadn't broken. Inspector Hassan studied him from across the table. You're a hard man to crack. Chief Christopher smirked. I take that as a compliment. You shouldn't, Hassan leaned forward, because right now you're the prime suspect in the murder of Sophia Williams. The chief didn't blink. I already told you. I didn't kill her. Then explain this. Hassan pulled out a small plastic bag and dropped it on the table. Inside was a gold bracelet, the same one from the picture Richard had found. The chief's face remained still, but his eyes darkened. That belongs to you, doesn't it? Hassan pressed. Chief Christopher finally spoke. It was stolen. Hassan chuckled. Convenient excuse. It's the truth. Then tell me, who would want to steal your bracelet and frame you for murder? Chief Christopher exhaled. A very dangerous person. Hassan's expression turned serious. Who? Chief Christopher looked him straight in the eye. The same person who killed Sophia. Hassan tapped his fingers against the table. I'm listening. Chief Christopher leaned forward. But if I tell you, I want something in return. Hassan folded his arms. You're in no position to negotiate. Chief Christopher smirked. I think I am, because if you don't listen to me now, you'll be solving more than one murder very soon. Hassan's face twitched. What do you mean? Chief Christopher's voice was low, but firm. They're going after my son next. Richard sat on the floor of his bedroom staring at the photographs. David had left an hour ago, but sleep was impossible. His father's bracelet in that picture. The terror in Sophia's eyes. What was she trying to tell him before she died? His phone vibrated. A text. Unknown number. Stop digging or you'll end up like her. Richard's breath caught in his throat. His fingers tightened around his phone. This wasn't just about Sophia anymore. They were coming for him. Richard's grip tightened around his phone as he reread the message. Stop digging, or you'll end up like her. His pulse pounded. Someone was watching him. Someone who had killed Sophia and was now making sure he didn't uncover the truth. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. If they were threatening him, it meant he was close. Too close. And there was no way in hell he was stopping now. He picked up his car keys and dialed a number. David, meet me at the police station. Now. Chief Christopher sat in the cold interrogation room, watching Inspector Hassan with sharp eyes. Let me get this straight, Hassan said. You claim someone is framing you. You also claim your son's life is in danger, yet you refuse to give me a name. Chief Christopher leaned forward. Because you won't believe me. Try me. The chief exhaled. The man you need to look at is Senator Victor Okoye. Hassan froze. For the first time since the interrogation started, he looked shaken. You're telling me a sitting senator is involved in this murder? I'm telling you he's behind everything, Chief Christopher said, and if you don't act fast, more people will die. Before Hassan could respond, the door burst open. Richard stormed in, David right behind him. Inspector, I need to talk to you, Richard said, his voice urgent. Now. It's about Sophia's murder. All right, talk. Richard tossed the envelope onto the table. Look at these. Hassan opened it and started flipping through the pictures. His eyes widened when he saw Sophia tied to a chair, fear in her eyes. Then he saw the bracelet. Where did you get these? He asked. From Emika's apartment, Richard said. But Emika is missing. He ran or someone made him disappear. Chief Christopher's jaw tightened. They killed him. Richard turned to his father. Who is they? Chief Christopher exhaled. Senator Okoye and his men. Hassan narrowed his eyes. That's a bold accusation. It's not an accusation, Chief Christopher said. It's a fact. Hassan studied him. All right, start from the beginning. The chief nodded. 2 weeks ago, Sophia came to my office. She was scared. She had found out something about Okoye, something she wasn't supposed to know. She wanted my help. Richard's heart pounded. What did she find out? Chief Christopher hesitated. Okoye runs a trafficking ring, high-profile clients, government officials, business elites, dangerous people. Sophia had evidence, and she was ready to expose him. Richard felt like the air had been sucked from his lungs. Oh my God. Okoye found out she was digging, the chief continued. So he ordered her to be taken out. Hassan rubbed his face. And you're just telling us this now? Would you have believed me without proof? Hassan didn't answer. He knew the kind of power men like Okoye had. A senator involved in human trafficking. If that got out, the entire country would shake. David, who had been quiet all this time, spoke. Then why was Sophia's body found in your house? The chief exhaled. Because Okoye wanted to frame me. He knew Sophia had come to me for help. He thought if I took the fall, no one would suspect him. The room was dead silent. Hassan finally spoke. This is a lot to take in. But if what you're saying is true, we need proof. Richard nodded. We already have some. The photos. Sophia's last message on her phone, but we need more. Chief Christopher looked at Hassan. Then start by finding Emeka. If he's still alive, he'll lead you straight to Okoye. The next 48 hours were intense. With Hassan's team secretly investigating, they traced Emeka's phone records. The last known location, a private warehouse on the outskirts of Abuja. By the time the police raided the warehouse, they found exactly what they were looking for. Emeka, alive, barely. He had been beaten and left for dead, but he survived. And when he woke up in the hospital, he told them everything. He had been working for Okoye's men. He was the one who had driven Sophia to her death, but he hadn't killed her. He had only followed orders. And the man who had given those orders? Senator Victor Okoye. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank transactions, call logs, even a recorded conversation between Okoye and one of his enforcers. It was enough to bury him. The news broke like an earthquake. A sitting senator arrested for murder and human trafficking. The headlines exploded. Across Nigeria, Senator Okoye exposed, the evil behind power. Sophia Williams, the woman who died for the truth. Police confirm link between Okoye and trafficking ring. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like one. Richard sat in his father's study, staring at Sophia's engagement ring. She died fighting for the truth, he murmured. Chief Christopher placed a hand on his shoulder. Then don't let her death be in vain. Richard exhaled deeply. He had lost the love of his life, but he wouldn't let her sacrifice be forgotten. He made a decision that night. He would dedicate his life to exposing the kind of men who had taken Sophia away. He would fight, just like she did, because in the end, the truth always wins. Justice may take time, but it must always be served. Powerful people will try to bury the truth, but the truth cannot stay buried forever. Sophia's story is a reminder that one voice, no matter how small, can make a difference. Okoye was sentenced to life in prison with hard labor for the killing of Mrs. Sophia and other crimes committed. Thank you for watching, and drop your comment of what you think of the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos.